Hi friends, today I want to share with you one of the most exciting stories from my life. At the time, I was only 21 years old and living in a large city in the Midwest, near a university. It was considered a dangerous neighborhood, and I had run into trouble before. But what happened that day shook me to my core. At the time, I had only lived there for 1 month when my story began. During that time, I encountered moments that made me feel unsafe. Witnessing an assault at a subway station, being abused by a drug addict, a homeless man following me and threatening to strangle me outside a physical building on campus, and witnessing a police raid on drug dealers across the street. The neighborhood around the university was known for its danger and high crime rate. We received reports from the campus police several times a week of robberies, break-ins, assaults, harassment, and attempted kidnappings. I always disregarded these texts, foolishly thinking I would never be victimized because I'm smart enough to stay out of trouble, and I don't walk alone late at night. All those stamps. Now I seriously regret my behavior. And to everyone listening to me now, I ask that you never assume that you are 100% safe, despite your level of training. Always do your best to remain alert and cautious. The first incident was not too unusual. I was walking back home one early evening with my dog Sesame, a cute Shiba Inu breed dog who always looked like a fluffy, naive puppy, never showing any aggression. As I passed a small parking lot, I saw a large van in which sat a man in his 60s smoking a cigarette. He looked at me as I walked by and even leaned out of the car to call out to me, "Hey, you there. You have a cute dog. What's her name?" That has to be said that this wasn't even my first situation like this. I have a pretty intense fear of strangers, and I struggle with PTSD due to other incidents in my life, so I ignored it and walked faster. But after a while, I heard a car door close behind me and turned around to see him get out of the van and slowly make his way towards me. He called out to me again, "Hey kid, I just want to see your dog. Come back." His words made me angry and I realized I was starting to get nervous. My heart started to beat harder, but I still told myself that I was exaggerating and it was just my paranoia. But I was wrong. I turned the corner and was almost to my house when I looked over my shoulder and saw that he had stopped following me. He was standing on the sidewalk with a huge, horrible grin on his face. I instantly turned around to the building and saw that there was only half a block to go and I would be home. I thought I would get away from him and his horrible van, but just when I thought I was safe, a group of 5 or 6 men came out of the park. They were tall and intimidating, looking right at me, and I saw that the van man had also started walking towards me, whistling. I quickened my step and began fidgeting, trying to find my keys in my pocket as I slowly approached the door. A group of men partially blocked my path and I stupidly stopped. They grinned their perverted smiles at me, examining me from head to toe, and I felt hurt. I tried to refuse, hesitating, but they wouldn't stop asking questions. "What's your name? Where are you going? Do you have Snapchat? Is this your apartment? Can we come in? Do you smoke?" They questioned me persistently, and one of them even reached out to me, touching my arm. I recoiled, trying not to cry, but at that moment Sesame suddenly threw himself at them, his teeth bared, emitting a terrible growl. All his cuteness and friendliness was gone, and he looked like he wanted to rip the throat out of one of these guys. That scared them enough for me to turn around and run to my building, closing the door behind me. I fell to the floor inside my building, hugging Sesame. But the entire front of my building was glass, and I saw a group of men standing in front of the windows, smirking, laughing, and making nasty gestures. The apartment manager came out and called the police, but they ran away. I went home, showered, cried, and shook with fear. Sesame got a special dinner that night, and I kept consoling myself with the thought that they just wanted to play with me and I was never in any real danger. I'm ashamed to admit that I really did think that. About a month later, when I was finally able to leave my house without serious anxiety, I was going to move a little farther away from campus. I would still be staying in a dangerous neighborhood, but the thought that those men might have known where I lived kept me on my toes. My apartment even hired a security guard who was there 24/7 after someone broke into the building, smashed all the windows, destroyed some of the furniture, and stole many bikes, including mine. That's the kind of bad luck I have. Anyway, I was walking home after class, and it was beautiful weather outside. I was even feeling pretty happy, so I turned on my headphones for the last few blocks as I walked home. It was stupid, I know. After a while, I started to feel like someone was watching me. My palms started to sweat, and I looked around, trying not to draw attention. About 20 feet behind me stood a tall man, staring intently at me. I turned sharply and pulled out my headphones, shaking my head negatively. Couldn't this be one of them? This is just me jumping to assumptions because of my anxiety disorder and paranoia. But there was something familiar about him. My heart began to beat harder, and I prayed to God that the others weren't waiting around the corner of my house, ready to attack me. I began to step faster, wishing Sesame was with me. I was too afraid to look back at him as I fumbled with my keys and jerked open the door as hard as I could. This proved to be a crucial mistake, for as I ran towards the elevator, trying to breathe a sigh of relief, I saw with absolute horror that a man had slowed the door and slowly entered the building with me. He stopped far away from me, but close enough that I could hear his panting breath and the smell of alcohol. My heart clenched in my chest, and I tried to think clearly. The apartment manager had already finished his workday, and I was all alone in the lobby. There were no other exits from this room, and a stranger blocked my path to the door. The security guard, who was supposed to be monitoring the building, was nowhere to be seen. The elevator pulled up, and I tried to escape into it, pressing the door close button as fast as I could. I pressed my floor button and pressed myself against the far corner of the elevator. I started to breathe again, but when the doors were almost closed, he suddenly stuck his hand in. I couldn't believe my eyes. He waited until the door was almost closed and then stopped it. He was standing close enough that it couldn't have been an accident. My stomach wrapped up and a horrible feeling of dread swept over me. I lowered my head as he entered the elevator. My only hope was that he was just a filthy drunken occupant of the building. But when he didn't press a single button, I realized that wasn't the case. I don't know why I didn't run from the elevator or try to leave the building again. I was paralyzed with fear, and all I could do was watch as the door closed and determine my fate. The elevator smelled of alcohol, and if I hadn't been so scared, I might have vomited. It was nauseating. I couldn't look at it, couldn't move. I tried to scream to myself inside my head to press the wrong button and try to escape, but I was completely paralyzed. He moved closer to me and I heard him inhale deeply and then sigh quietly as if he was content. Tears filled my eyes, and the seconds that seemed like hours to me as the elevator reached my floor were so slow. I saw no way to escape from this drunken man who was groping me, and in the reflection of the elevator walls I could make out his hideous smile. He was looking right at me, his hands were in his pockets, clearly holding something. I'm not religious, but I prayed I could get to my door in time. I realized he probably wouldn't attack me in the elevator. There was a large camera on the ceiling. I looked at it, feeling a tear protrude from my eye, hoping that whoever saw the footage would identify this man sooner or later. The scariest part of this story is that I had been trained in martial arts and self-defense since I was 8 years old. I thought I was stronger and braver than I actually was. I should have known what to do. I should have been strong enough to do it, but no matter how many times I disarmed attackers, in the gym, Nothing prepares you for the fear of real life. When the elevator reached my floor, I managed to gather my wits enough to instantly jump out of it and run towards my apartment. I almost missed, but I ripped the door open with force, and as my backpack caught the handle on the outside of the door holding me up, I felt him come out behind me. I heard him walk quickly to my door, laughing slightly as he watched me panic and struggle to free myself. I felt like a mouse watched by a cat, trapped and defenseless, so close to escaping. Finally, I gave up and threw my backpack away, giving myself over to the struggle to get free. As soon as I did, a man suddenly reached his hand toward my face. I managed to slam the door shut at the last moment while his hand was only a couple inches from my face. I heard his fist pound on the wood, and I knew he would have hit me if he'd gotten to me in time. I locked up, then found my cell phone and called 911. The police arrived a few minutes later, but the man was already gone. They asked me for his description, and I was able to give them a few details, but alas, it wasn't enough for them to find him. I called my relative's name and asked him to come get me. They escorted me to the local police station where I was able to describe the incident in detail and make a statement. Afterward, I went home shaking with fear and shocked by what had happened. As a result of this incident, I realized that one should never neglect the sense of danger. Even if something seems unusual or strange, it is best to trust your intuition and take precautions. I am learning to live safely, and I hope my story serves as a cautionary tale for others. Be careful and take care of yourself, friends.